The dark side.
There's been no one for so long. Who are you?
Hello, I Bubble Freak.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the series finale of the review you've been looking for, our Star Wars review, guys. Welcome to Project Potter. My name is Kyle, your host. Guys, we are here to discuss The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9. Thanks for checking out Project Potter. If you haven't seen the series before, go check out the other reviews, of course. But what we do is go through my thoughts on the movie, kind of my favorite scenes. The Force is strong with this one, which is my favorite character. There was no try, which is my least favorite character. Score out of 10, and then the final rankings, definitive rankings, guys. Had a blast watching these. It's been really interesting to see all these back-to-back, and especially the sequel trilogy, and I think it really helped actually watching these back-to-back instead of waiting and kind of rewatching and looking at it with critical eye. So let's go. Okay, guys, so there are a ton of scenes that I love in this movie. Off the top of my head, guys, the desert scene where Rey is facing down Kylo is so cool. We saw it. That was like the trailer. I think it was the Super Bowl trailer, or like it was in December. I forget, but it was like one of the big TV spots. Kylo is just ripping ass, dude. It's like she's running the Olympics, dude. She starts running, times it perfectly, does a leap over, cuts Kylo Ren's ship with her lightsaber. It's amazing. It looks super cool. The opening scene too, where we see Rey, where she says, be with me, and everything's levitating, and she's like trying so hard to get all of the Jedi with her, of course, what she does at the end of the movie, goes through the training montage, and she's got Luke's helmet, and she almost crushes BB-8 with a tree, which is funny. And it just shows you how far she's come, but she's not quite there. And then obviously at the end of the movie, she completes that training, which is a great moment. The stuff between Kylo and Rey has been, I think, the strength of this trilogy, and it's just so good. It's even better here, where they start off, they're fighting, they have that amazing fight on the Death Star, guys. First of all, the fact that we go to the crashed Death Star over by Endor is amazing, dude. And it's like in the waves, and you can just picture that thing like after it blows up or whatever, like this giant debris coming down. And Rey goes to the throne room, which is awesome. She sees Darth Rey, or like the dark version of Rey, who has a sick lightsaber that like snaps down almost like Darth Maul, but instead of clicking it, it like folds up. It's so awesome. And it's like, don't be afraid of who you are. And we get hints at this when Rey is in the desert, actually right after she takes down Kylo's ship. Finn is like, Rey, they got Chewie. And then she looks up and she just uses the Force to stop the ship from leaving. And then Kylo sees it, and then he tries to like get it. And so they're both battling. And then she like gets so frustrated that she uses Force lightning. And that's the first time we're like, oh, she's not like what we think she is. And she blows up the ship, and it's a super emotional moment. And the ship blows up, and she's like, Chewie. And like the way that Daisy Ridley like says it in her voice, like she can't believe it. She's so like hurt. That moment I think is so great, but then they ruin it because like 2 minutes later, they just reveal that Chewie was on the other ship. And it's like, you intentionally made that an emotional moment, and then you took that away from us. So this movie does have some obvious flaws, guys. Palpatine coming back is just dumb. I mean, even Oscar Isaac, when he's delivering the line, he's like, somehow Palpatine is back. Like, it's like even the writers were just like, dude, I don't even know how this shit works. But we see Palpatine at the end, like literally hooked up to this giant machine. It looks really dumb. It's a very stupid plot point. And when I get to the store, guys, that's why my score might be a little bit lower than otherwise it would be. But I don't want to focus too much on the negative. Guys, we got Babu Frick in this movie, and it's incredible. Babu Frick steals the show, dude. He's so cute and good and hilarious, and this movie is really funny. When Daisy, sorry guys, the movie opens actually after Kylo's like murdering people in the forest, and I'm like, Kylo and Forrest, maybe there's something there that doesn't, like, there's a deeper issue there. But he's killing everyone. He gets the the Sith Wayfinder, which looks really dumb, honestly. It's like a cool device, but when they hook it up to the ship, they just like put wires on it, and I'm like, we couldn't have like had this like insert into a slot or something. That I don't know how that made the final cut, but the dagger scene in this movie, really dumb. Like, just like laugh out loud bad, where Ridley, or I should say Rey, takes the dagger, and then she like pulls a little, when they get to the Death Star, and she pulls a little like slot out of it, and she holds it up, and it like lines it up, but it like nothing, it doesn't like line up with anything. So, but she's like, it's right there. Like, I'm glad I had the dagger. I couldn't have gotten that without it. And it's just like, is that supposed to like match up something? Like it was so weird to me. But honestly, guys, despite these flaws, there's, like I said, so much to love. The opening scene, sorry, I'm kind of going like all over the place here. I'm hyperspeed skipping. They hyperspeed skip it, which is like one of the coolest things, where they're like, hold on, and he's like, what are you doing? And Poe is like, I'm hyperspeed skipping, and so he like goes to hyperspeed, then comes out of it, and like they're like thrown into worlds where they're literally like almost crashing into stuff, and he's like entering coordinates. It's the coolest thing, dude. And we learned last movie with The Last Jedi, guys, that the Empire can track them through hyperspace. So the opening is like them hyperspace jumping and these TIE fighters hyperspace jumping and following them, because we're like, okay, they can't just hyperspace and get away now, which I think is a really cool element. But then like the Falcon is damaged, and so they like barely get out of it. They come back, and then there's the great scene where they're like, everything's on fire, and Poe and Finn come over, and Rey is like, what are you doing? And he's like, what happened to BB-8? And she's like, BB-8 isn't on fire. Like, what happened with the Falcon? And they're like, he's hyperspace skipping, or Chewie says it. And she's like, what? You were hyperspace skipping? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, you can't hyperspace skip with the Falcon. And he's like, apparently you can. And she goes, you know what? You're a difficult person. You know that? That's what you are. You're difficult. And I'm like, the chemistry here between Oscar Isaac and Daisy Ridley, dude, it's like, ooh, these two are smoking, dude. Like, later on in the movie, guys, and again, I'm kind of all over the map, but this is just kind of like going off memory. Finn meets another girl who defected from the stormtrooper, and it's really, really cool, and who might be Lando's daughter. Lando has, I thought was a creepy line the first time rewatching it. It wasn't, it's so weird, but when he's like, oh, I'm from the gold system, he's like, what about you? And she's like, I don't know where my home is. And he's like, let's find out. And I'm like, still pretty creepy, but it wasn't as bad as I remembered it. She said they were all part of the stormtroopers, and they all put their weapons down because they were ordered to fire on civilians. And Finn is like, I thought I was the only one. And they're like, no, dude, like Empire's messed up. And so that was really cool to like kind of expand on that a little bit. So she joins the crew, and then they're riding like the space horses or whatever, which is really cool. I just love the whole thing of like the final order, where it's like all these Star Destroyers, and they all have planet killing weaponry now, and it's like, oh, dude, it's like this is not good. Palpatine's like people followers, that was really weird. They're all like wearing robes, and it's like, are these other versions of Palpatine, or what's going on? It's really, the whole Palpatine thing I thought was just like, we could have done without it. I wish Kylo was just the main villain, and then like we could have had his turn. But speaking of that, guys, the turn of Kylo is great. And obviously, like, they're fighting on the crashed Death Star, and the waves are going, and it looks so cool, and it's actually a really good lightsaber fight. And then Leia uses her last bit of strength to reach out to Ben, which is awesome, because it like he's about to like kill Daisy, and then she reaches him and he stops, and then Daisy like takes his lightsaber, stabs him, and then she's like, oh shit, my bad, dude. Like she feels that Leia dies, and then she's like, oh my god, and then she uses her force healing. If that was the first time that we would have found out she could force heal, it would have been really cool. But we found out in a weird way that like she heals like a random snake underground, which is how they did force healing. And force healing is awesome. And obviously Ben does that at the end of the movie, sacrificing himself to let Rey live, which is really, really sweet. And it's like, you know, those two are so connected. It's literally a love-hate relationship where they were trying to kill each other, but then they realized it was so powerful, it was actually love. And I thought it was forced a little bit, the kiss and everything, guys. But again, rewatching it and having watched the sequel trilogy, all three, there's a connection between them from the very beginning. Like right when Rey is captured and Kylo's reading her mind, like you can tell that they're both so strong in the Force. And it's like, I really like that their whole dynamic, I think, throughout the trilogy. I think it is awesome. So when they do kiss at the end, and when when Ben sacrifices himself, I think it really is earned and justified. So I didn't think at the time watching this movie in theaters, but rewatching it now and having some context, I'm like, oh, okay, much, much better this time. So get the They Fly Now scene, dude, where they're going through, and then all of a sudden the stormtrooper takes off in a jetpack, and he goes, they fly now? They fly now. And I'm like, thought it was cheesy. It's actually pretty good, guys. Made me smile. Obviously, we get Billy D. Williams back as Lando, which is great. And having watched Donald Glover as young Lando, I was like, okay, and he crushed that. But obviously, the original, it's great. He comes back in the Falcon at the end, guys. We get the end game moment in this where he's like, you know, Poe is the new general after Leia takes over, who's a great choice because I love Oscar Isaac. And he is like, I'm sorry guys, I failed you, like I let you down, like no one's coming. And then Billy D is like, there's more of us, and he comes around the corner and it's like this huge, all these, like all the allies. And there's a great speech that Poe says before they leave where he says, great people will fight if we lead them. And I'm like, wow, that's so awesome. Yeah, there's just so much. The fight between Rey and Kylo in Kylo's quarters. I love how Daisy is like, or Rey, excuse me, is like hiding from Kylo, but like he keeps tapping in and being like, I'm gonna find you. And he says like, you're a hard one to find. And then like they fight and they knock over the Vader helmet. And so he's like, oh, so that's where you are. And he's like, you're in the ship, lock down the ship. They go to see Carrie Russell's character from The Americans. I love Carrie Russell. She has an awesome, Sori, I think her name is. She has an awesome helmet. And then all you see is her eyes that one time. But her dynamic with Poe is great. We find out Poe was a spice runner too, which is awesome, dude. I would have never cared about this before, but having watched Book of Boba Fett and like caring more about spice now and Tatooine and all that, I'm like, oh, these things add up and these things are all connected. And it's really, really cool to be like, oh, you were a spice runner? And he's like, yeah, and you used to be a stormtrooper and you used to be a scavenger. He's like, we could do this all night. That was awesome. But I thought Carrie Russell's character was amazing. And then she shows up back at the end and Poe gives her a look where he's like, he gives her like a head nod. And then he's like, are we gonna sleep together? And she's like, nah. And he's like, hey, you know, it's like a Oscar Isaac, look at me, dude. We get the Knights of Ren too, obviously. Now they're not used too much, but they are still pretty cool in here. There's like the shot of them like on a cliff and they're like around there, but they're the ones who captured Chewie. I would have liked that they do more, but it is cool at the end when Rey, because they figured out that they can like pass stuff between each other. I love how Ben shows up at the end and Rey puts the lightsaber behind her back because she brought both. Remember that Luke tells her, and we'll get into in a second, guys. And then Ben takes the lightsaber out against and just kills all the Knights of Ren. And it's really, really cool because, like, you know, we get the Harrison Ford in-person cameo, no Force Ghost, dude. He shows up and, you know, that's the moment where Kylo Ren dies, where he says, like, I know what I need to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And this time what he needs is throw his Kylo Ren lightsaber into the ocean, which is the official death of Kylo Ren, and then he becomes Ben Solo. And it's really, really cool. It's great to see Harrison Ford in there, and you know, he says like son, and he touches his face, and it's like it really speaks to him. And Rey takes off in his old ship after she heals Kylo and then leaves him, and then she takes off in the ship and she goes to the place that Luke was at. And she burns the ship, and she's like really angry, and she's frustrated, and she can't trust anything, and she's upset that Leia's dead. She goes to throw the lightsaber because she's just like, I'm done with this life. And that's when Luke's Force Ghost comes over, and he's like, yeah, Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. And it's funny how it's like a direct opposite of what he did in Last Jedi. But I mean, he does say here, it does make sense, guys, that like he says, I was wrong. And, you know, and it's like, people were like, oh, well, this is a direct opposition to Rian Johnson. And because everyone, like, a lot of people didn't like Last Jedi, the people said like this movie was a correction to that. And it's like, I mean, kind of, but also it's just like Luke learned from his mistakes, dude. You know, there's no perfect character. And so he said, you know, he was wrong. He was in a bad place, similar to where Rey is. And that's why it works so well, because she's like, she doesn't want to do anything, and she throws it. And then that's when Luke is like, hey, I literally know what you're going through. And he's like, take this. And then she's like, how do I get back to that world? I can't, like, because Kylo destroys the last Wayfinder, or we think so. And then he's like, you have everything you need. That's when she goes into the ship. And this is a little convenient because like she burned Kylo's ship, except it didn't like burn the Wayfinder that was still attached there. So that was interesting. She takes the Wayfinder out, and then we get the awesome moment where Luke raises his X-Wing out of the ocean. And it's like, oh, it's so cool, dude. And he's just like, dude, this is way better. I'm way more powerful as a Force Ghost. Like, I should have died a long time ago. But no, she takes over his ship, and then she puts the helmet on and she flies there. And that's how they get the coordinates, because they don't have the Wayfinder. They don't know how to get there, but Rey is showing them the path. She's like transmitting the signal from, they say, Luke Skywalker's X-Wing. I'm like, oh my God, dude, that's so awesome. Like, all that stuff is cool. I'm sure I'm forgetting some things, guys, but I really was like very pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed this film the second time watching. And so those are kind of my thoughts. Okay, guys, the Force is strong with this one. It's Daisy Ridley as Rey, man. She is great. I mean, this trilogy obviously is all about her. And again, I know people have issues, but I think that she is phenomenal. I think she fits the role perfectly. Star Wars does a really good job of having really strong feminine lead characters, and it's no exception here, where I think they could do stuff with Daisy Ridley for years and years and years. She's obviously young enough. I think she's like my age probably, or she's like just 28, 29 or something. Like, she's really young, so she could be the next like Luke Skywalker. She could just go on and go on. I really hope they do. I think she's in talks for more Star Wars work, but I just think her progression from the Force Awakens to this movie is like night and day. And it's like she really is like a Jedi master at this point, where she's stopping ships with the Force, but she's learning to control the power. Oh, guys, sorry, I can't believe I forgot this freaking scene. The scene where Palpatine is like, strike me down and you will, I am all the Sith, blah, blah, blah. It's really dumb, but it's cool because Kylo, or excuse me, I keep calling him Kylo. That's my fault. Ben shows up, and then he's like, the two of you, they use as the life force. And then Palpatine shoots the lightning up into the sky, and that's really cool because it's like right after all the allies show up, and they're like, oh, we have a chance. And he's like, oh, your friends are all going to die. And then he's like, no one can stop the power, because after he takes the power from Ben and Rey, he takes like most of their life force basically, and then uses it to like get back to like normal Palpatine basically. And then he like uses super lightning, and it just wrecks everyone's ship. And it's like, how are you going to stop that, dude? And it looks like the final order is going to win. And then, of course, that's when Rey has the moment where she's looking up and she's like crying, and she's seeing everyone go down. And then she says, be with me. And then that's when we get the awesome moment, guys, of all of the old Jedi, or like the main Jedi. I think we get Mace in there, Qui-Gon Jinn. We get Yoda saying, these are your final steps. All these awesome stuff. Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course. I think it's Alec Guinness's voice. I don't think it's Ewan McGregor's, but that's so cool. And then like it gives her the strength to like rise Rey, and it's like, oh my god, it was such a hype moment. And she gets up, Emperor Palpatine goes to like shock her, and she takes the lightsaber out, and she's like just one-handed like putting it back. He says like, oh, I am all the Sith, there's no resistance or whatever. And she goes, yeah, and I'm all the Jedi. And she takes her second saber and puts it out there, dude, and then starts walking, and it like destroys his face. Oh my god, it's so cool, dude. I can't believe I forgot to mention that, guys, but that is just an amazing all-time moment. And it's just like a collection of the Skywalker saga. Like it's great. But I think Daisy is so awesome, and obviously just the most gorgeous woman on the planet. So again, Daisy, if you're available, I'm still single, so like hit me up. I think she showed a ton of emotion in this one. I mean, that scene, especially when she thinks she kills Chewie, which I wish that they would have stuck with it. As much as I don't want them to kill Chewbacca, that would have been such an emotional moment. And it was, or like, at least if you're going to fake us out, give it a couple hours, or not a couple hours, but like give it like an hour, 45 minutes. But like, it's like the next scene that they're like, they just show Chewie, and I'm like, oh, dude, come on, man. Like it's weird. But yeah, I mean, Rey is like heartbroken when she does that, and like she lost control of her powers. And I just love that she's struggling with that. And then at the end, for her to like have full control over her powers and just like easily be the best one. I love how like Poe tells her like, hey, you're the best fighter we have. You need to be out there with us. And she's like, yeah, I know. And he's like, you're training for what? And it's like, hey, dude, wait till the end of the movie when she saves your ass. She was badass. Like all of her action scenes were amazing, but obviously all of her stuff with Ben/Kylo too, I think was amazing. And the two of them were so good. And Adam Driver, I've talked about, guys, is such a great actor, but I thought Daisy was right there with him, where like every scene that they were in, it was really intense. And she did a really great job of like portraying that like struggle. And a lot of the scenes too, you have to be carried by the acting, because they're just sitting in like a room or whatever, and like they switch the scene, but like it's just like, man, those two are the main attraction. And it's just really awesome to see. And Daisy, I think, bravo, because she did a hell of a job. Okay, guys, there was no try. It's Emperor Palpatine, dude. It's more like the idea of Palpatine, where we hear he's back, right? And they're like, oh, he's been pulling the strings in the shadows the whole time. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Except for the fact that we saw him get thrown down a shaft and get electrocuted and explode. But he is super powerful to dark side. And, you know, he tells Anakin back in the prequels that, like, you know, there's dark power that can save people from death or whatever. And so it's kind of funny because, like, that's what he ends up using, or, like, somehow he's alive. I just don't like that they're even like, oh, we don't really know how, but Palpatine's alive. And then we see him connected to this giant crane, and it just looks so stupid. I think they could have left that out. You know, it would have been really cool if they brought back Darth Maul. And I know Darth Maul had his own like path in the, I think it was Rebels. Live action Darth Maul has been dead since Phantom Menace, and we saw him teased in Solo. So it would actually have been awesome if like they were like, who is that? And it's like Darth Maul's back, and it's like, because I don't think none of these people would have fought Darth Maul because it was Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Obviously Qui-Gon's dead, so like it would have been really awesome to see that, and just to see like his return would have made a lot more sense, I think, instead of like bringing back Palpatine. That clearly, it's like a huge moment when Vader throws him over there, dude. Like it's like huge betrayal, and it's like, and it completes Vader's redemption arc. So it was weird. I thought his presence was weird. So we heard him at the beginning, and then he's like not shown really until the very end, and then his reveal, like he looked creepy enough. There's like a one scene where his like part of his hand goes off, and he just like regenerates it. I like the idea of the dark side and how powerful it is, but I just thought like him being the big bad, but then like not being able to move was weird. I love the final order and the fleet. That was all really, really cool, and it looked incredible. Like this movie is visually absolutely incredible, dude. I think the prettiest Star Wars movie ever, like the most gorgeous, stunning. You say what you want, like it was a treat to watch it on a 4K projector. But yeah, Palpatine sucks. Disrespect to the actor, of course, guys, as I always say, but his arc or his character being back was just a miss for me. Okay, guys, that brings us to the score, and I'm going to surprise a whole lot of people, guys, and I've spent a whole lot of time thinking about this, and again, this is my second time watching this film, so I saw this film in theaters when it came out. I had a great theater experience. Again, I was excited to watch the Star Wars movie. I was like, oh, you know what, that was a fun movie, but I think everyone collectively agreed, like, on the review roundups that I watched, that, like, the story is a mess, and it's, like, it was fun, and it's a breakneck pace, but it's just, like, doesn't make sense that Palpatine's back. That was weird. And so I went into this movie kind of expecting a bad movie, and I am pleasantly surprised to admit that it held up much better than I thought it would. And maybe because I knew the ridiculous plot and I wasn't like going in there expecting like a perfect movie, I ended up enjoying it a lot more. But even the things I didn't like the first time, I feel like I liked a lot more, or like I picked up a lot more this time. And like I said, little things like the Spice Runner, finding out Poe is a Spice Runner I now care about. So it's also like the time and place where now I've seen other Star Wars properties, and because I've watched these all in a row, and it's really like made me pay attention to things and maybe appreciate the universe as a whole more. So guys, one more thing I want to mention, guys, before I reveal my score here. Another thing that missed slightly for me was the C-3PO memory loss was like really an emotional moment where they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm taking a moment to say goodbye to my friends. And I was like, tearing up at that, dude, because they're like, we can't restore your memory, but we need to get this information from the Sith dagger. And he's like, I can read it. But that's when they get Babu Frick to reveal it. And he's like, ho ho. And Babu Frick is amazing. Wipe his memory. And then I was like, oh, damn. But they're like, I guess we have to do it. And like C-3PO turns red, and he's got the red eyes, and it's like terrifying, dude, because he's got like a low voice, and you're like, oh, like we forget that he is a droid, and he's not like happy-go-lucky 3PO. But then they like do get his memory back later. R2 just like restored, because they're like, oh, doesn't R2 back up your memory? And he's like, oh, their memory cores are like historically unreliable or whatever. And so then R2 just like plugs it into him later, and he's like just restores his memory. And I was like, okay. But I think it was really funny though, to their credit, when they erase his memory, and he's like, that's Babu Frick. He's my oldest friend. Like, come on, C-3PO, move your ass. And he's like, how rude, we just met. And there's a lot of funny scenes there, but I'm sure I'm forgetting things, but there's just a lot of things I really liked about this movie. Guys, I'm going to go a little bit on the crazy side here. This is a 9.7 for me. That's right, guys. You heard me, 9.7. This is a fantastic movie. This is such a fun movie, guys. And again, I mentioned the most stunning Star Wars movie. It's just, there's so many shots where I was like, wow, this looks incredible, man. And I've said this about the sequel trilogy, and I think it got better and better as the movies went on. And I loved The Last Jedi aesthetically. And I really liked a lot of that movie, but I watched these movies back to back to back. The story is a lot more cohesive than I thought it would be. And again, the Palpatine stuff doesn't work. The dagger stuff doesn't work. The fake Chewie death scene is stupid. I wish they would have kept that or had that be a real moment, because it was an emotional, impactful moment. Rey being a Palpatine, and then at the end being a Skywalker. I will say, I know that's really cheesy, but I actually really like that she like literally kills the last Palpatine, and then she kind of like rids herself of that. She goes back to Aunt Beru, where Luke was raised, and she buries the sabers, which is nice. She buries Luke and Leia's sabers, and then she like reveals her own saber, which she like spins the dial to open. It's not like a button, and which is really cool. And you think that her making her own saber, that would set up for more movies too. So I'm sure they're going to do more with Daisy. I really hope they do. There's just some ladies like, no one has been here for so long. She's like, who are you? She's like, Rey. And she goes, Rey who? And she goes, and then she sees Luke and Leia, and she goes, Rey Skywalker. And it's really cheesy, but it really hit me, guys. I was like, she sees the two moons on Tatooine, and it's like, it really just got me. And I was like emotional. And at the end, guys, when they go back to the Rebel base, everyone's hugging and everything. And there's a moment where like Daisy shows up last, or Rey shows up last, and she sees Poe and Finn, and they all just kind of run to each other, and they're all like crying and emotional. And it's really emotional, dude. It's like, because I love these characters, and you know, the original trilogy is great. It really is. It's fantastic. And those characters are iconic, but like this really was passing the torch, where like they kill off Luke, and Luke is like kind of a final hurrah, where he's like, here you go, like this is my X-Wing. I love how she puts the helmet on, and it's just like they're passing the torch to this generation of Star Wars, and I really hope they do a lot more, because I really love actually the main three, Poe, Finn, and Rey. I think they're just so great, and I really love a lot of the characters they introduced. So I really hope that they continue to build that out in shows, or whatever might kind of come to mind there. But yeah, guys, this movie is so much fun and so visually great. And again, the plot's not perfect, but I get to see the old throne room, which is awesome, dude. The fact that they fight on top of a crashed Death Star is amazing, dude. And the waves going around, and there's awesome lightsaber battles, and there's excellent use of the Force. The one thing I didn't mention, it was really weird. Oh, sorry, guys. So we find out basically that Finn is Force sensitive, because he like tells them like, I have a feeling, or he's like, I've known for a while. But I think that's what he's going to tell Rey. It's really weird that like they're sinking and they think they're about to die, and then he's like, oh, Rey, there's something I need to tell you. And she's like, oh, okay. And then they like go down into like underneath, and then she goes, okay, well, what did you want to tell me? And he's like, oh, I'll tell you later. And I'm like, bro, it was just a life or death situation where you said you need to tell her something, and then she's like, hey, what was it you wanted to tell me? And then at first I was like, are you going to tell her that you're in love with her? But then I don't know. I think he was going to tell her that he's Force sensitive, or he knows he has the Force too, or something. But Finn is basically a Jedi by the end of this trilogy, where, you know, he's wielded a lightsaber. He's got the Force. He doesn't really use the Force powers, but when they go to like destroy the detection, the signal or whatever, they disable the tracking. And they're like, what do you mean they disabled it? And then Finn is like, he looks up at the ship, and he's like, it's from that lead ship. And they're like, how do you know that? And he goes, I just have a feeling. And it's like, oh, it's the Force, dude. Like, it's really cool. I like what they do with his character. And this is just a great movie, guys. I know it's not perfect. I know it's got its flaws. I know Palpatine is dumb. But looking back on the old Star Wars movies, guys, like I was watching a lot of New Hope before like deciding on a score here, because we'll get into that in a second. But I'm like, there are parts of New Hope and parts of the original trilogy that drag. Like, it's, you know, we love Star Wars, and it's an incredible universe, and the characters are great. But it's not like, you know, these are 10 out of 10 films. Like, you know, I gave obviously Rogue One a 10 out of 10. I think that's an excellent movie. But with the exception of like one or two films, like the original trilogy has moments of slowness and weird moments and characters, but we just accept that because we love the universe, right? And so when I look at these newer films, yeah, some things don't work. The dagger thing was really weird. I don't know why they had the Wayfinder and the dagger. I don't think the dagger really did anything. And it's weird that they go to rescue Chewie, and she's like, oh, I need to get this dagger. And then I'm like, but why though? And that's strange. And then a C-3PO memory thing, and then saying like, oh, you know, I need to tell you something. And then like, we never even find out what that is. It's all weird, but you know, it was a bit of a mess, but I think they did a really good job of throwing it together. And this movie is so much fun to watch that I would watch this movie again at any time. And it's like 2.5 hours, but it doesn't feel like it. And it's just a treat. Like I said, a visual treat, guys. I mean, if you can watch this movie with a good sound system, a good, like a 4K projector like I have, or a big screen, make sure you do it, because your eyes will thank you. And yeah, I just had a ton of fun with this movie. Okay, guys, that brings us to our final rankings here, guys. And again, I'm going to surprise a lot of people, but we'll start at the top here, guys. Number 1 is Rogue One at a 10 out of 10. Number 2, Return of the Jedi at a 9.8. And guys, with the 9.7, that means that yes, this does slot in above A New Hope at number 3, guys. And then we have A New Hope at number 4 with a 9.6. We have Empire Strikes Back at a 9.2. Solo with a 9.1. The Last Jedi at an 8.8. We have The Force Awakens, 8.6. We have Attack of the Clones, 8.3. Revenge of the Sith, 7.5. And then the final one, guys, The Phantom Menace at a 7.1. So those are our definitive rankings. Yes, I'm sure a lot of people are going to have very different lists. Yes, I'm sure people hate both Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. Yes, this story is not perfect, but you know what, guys? These are my definitive rankings. When I think about ranking these, I think about visually, and obviously, guys, the original trilogy, much older, 40 years older. They've remastered them and they look great, but this obviously has the benefit of advanced technology and learning from the original trilogy and seeing what works and what doesn't. So these movies are going to look better, of course, but I vibe with this group of characters as much as I love the original characters, and I do. I love young Han, Luke, Leia, 3PO, and R2 are great. I'm so glad they're in pretty much every movie of the Skywalker saga. But I really, really just dig Finn, Poe, Rey. I think they're great. Sori, I think, was a really cool character with Kerry Russell adding here. I would love to see her in stuff moving forward. We need to put Babu Frick in everything going forward, guys. Like, please, he was so good. I love how we can kind of have these legacy characters in like Force Ghost, but I also think it's time to move on. Like, you know, we can do stuff like the DH Luke in A Book of Boba Fett. Like, that's cool, and Mandalorian stuff. But I think it really should just be kind of quick cameos from here on out. We need to move on eventually from the Skywalkers. And I know technically Rey is a Skywalker, but that's a new generation. We don't need to have Luke, Leia, and Han in every single one. And I think this was a proper send-off to them, like where we see Han for the last time and he, you know, helps save his son, where he, you know, basically essentially kills Kylo Ren. And that's what helps turn him. And, you know, it was Leia that reached out to Ben to save Rey. And then it was Han that kind of finished the job, and like his parents really saved him in the end. And I love how Ben sacrifices his own life by using the rest of his life energy to heal Rey and disappear. It was a little strange that he disappeared and didn't just die. Also, guys, it's a little nitpick, but when Rey is essentially dead after she says "I'm all the Jedi" and she takes down Palpatine, it uses so much energy that she has like no life force. Her eyes were open the whole time. It looked really weird. Daisy really did a great job of like not moving or blinking. So I don't know how she did that, but it's like, it was like, are you dead? Are you like, what's going on here? Are you just in a state of like a different state? Just little things, guys, but I thought that was cool. And obviously Kylo's mask being remade too, I didn't mention, guys, was really, really awesome. And Hux being the mole or the spy was weird, but he's like, I don't want you guys to win. I just want Kylo to lose. But then the Empire or the First Order shoots him because they're like, dude, like we found our spy. And that was Richard E. Grant, which played OG Loki in Loki. So I didn't even realize it was him. I didn't recognize him, but he was really good too. I thought the First Order was really cool in general. But yeah, guys, that's this one slots in, guys. Number 3. It is a top 3 Star Wars movie for me. It's fantastic. Again, I could watch this at any time. I was so shocked at how much I enjoyed this the second time. I was expecting to put it like bottom tier, and then I was watching it and I was just like, dude, this is a really fun movie. And it's just great to see like the old cameos, and it makes sense of everything. And I love how there's the great redemption arc for Kylo when he becomes Ben, and then Rey finishes her training. And yeah, it's just excellent. And I just think visually stunning and just a great time overall. So that's where it ends up where it is. All right, guys. Well, that's it. That's our review of every Star Wars movie. So we will return, guys, whenever the next Star Wars main movie comes out, or if they do like an interstitial like they did with Solo or Rogue One. So it's been a little bit now. I'm sure more stuff is coming. Again, I hope they do more stuff with Daisy, Finn, and Poe, because I think they're excellent. But thanks for checking out the channel, guys. I appreciate you guys checking out this journey with me. It's been great. I love Star Wars with all my heart. So, and I love how Star Wars is just so great. It means so much to so many people, guys. And you know, it's going to be okay, because people are going to hate this movie, and there's going to be people that love this movie, and there's going to be people who are in the middle. But that's cool, because Star Wars is so like reaches so far that like it's something for everyone. And even if you don't love this movie, it's like there's probably something in there that you like, whether it's like Adam Driver or Daisy Ridley, or whether you like the callback to the Death Star, or like if you like Palpatine coming back, even though it's really weird. There's something for everyone. And this trilogy, I know the sequel trilogy has some issues and there's things that they didn't do, but I think it gets a little too much hate right now, having just rewatched all 3 of them. It really is much better than I remember the trilogy as a whole being, and maybe just watching them back to back to back. help that, but I think it stands up a lot better than people are giving it credit for. So maybe be a little bit easy on the sequel trilogy, but also, guys, love what you love, and we're all fans of Star Wars, so that's why hopefully you guys are here. But I appreciate you stopping by, guys. Thanks for checking out Project Potter. Go check out the other content. Like, comment, subscribe, guys, and until next time, I'm all the Jedi.